Oh, hi. Does this background look familiar? It should. I used it for the review of Begun, which got more views than any other review on this channel, so I figured I'd try to recreate something in the past that was successful. Hollywood does it all the time. But I'm not here to talk about movies today, actually. I'm going to go do something a little bit different, have a video where I'm kind of talking a little bit more off the cuff about something I'm equally, if not more, passionate about than movies, which is music. And I'm going to start doing what's hopefully going to be a series, maybe, of lists in no particular order. Don't worry, this one's going to be a little bit more off the cuff, and I'm going to kind of just talk without a script sort of thing or any kind of outline, and hopefully it goes well. And today's list is going to be 10 songs in no particular order that always never fail to give me goosebumps every single time I listen to it. So the first song is called Chinese Translation by an artist known as M. Ward. If you're uninitiated, he's kind of now just sort of making sort of half asleep, boring, almost like adult contemporary rock or something. But in the mid to late 2000s, he was making a lot of really cool, straight up folk music, just quality folk music. I had the good fortune of seeing him live back in, I think it was 2009. I remember rocking my Zooey Deschanel shirt because, of course, he's also the other half of She and Him, which is Zooey Deschanel and M. Ward's sort of like 60s and 50s throwback band, which is kind of the same story. It's like the early stuff is like, okay, I can get behind this, and then after a while it's just like kind of the same thing over and over, except not as exciting by the end. But anyway, man, he was good that night, man. Oh man, just like from the first song, Jesus, I just can't even describe. You just had to be there. And it was a free show, for God's sakes. It was just so good, man. It was at Central Park Summer Stage. It's just, it just tells a great story about an old man on a mountain who's, telling his life story to someone who's seeking, answers to existential questions. And, it's very philosophical. It's very touching. But it's one of those nice moments where not only is there a great story from beginning to end that you could return to, but the music is great, It really goes with the song very well, and it's very kind of light, and it builds up nicely and then comes back down and then builds back up again at the end. It's great. His guitar work is very understated, but also he's a very talented guy. Gotta change it up here with the second song from the artist Madvillian, which is actually the rapper MF Doom, and all the beats are produced by a guy named Madlib, who, if you don't know him, please check him out. He's responsible for probably, I'm no real aficionado on hip-hop. I like to think that I know a decent amount of it, but my favorite hip-hop album ever is Quasimodo the Unseen. It's called Accordion by Madvillian, and this one just always, I don't know, there's just something about that very simple, repetitive beat, and it's just not distracting at all. You can just kind of vibe with the sort of nice flow that MF Doom has, where it's very like playful and silly, but you can also tell that, he's a talented wordsmith. And it's only 2 minutes long. Just something about this beat in this song, it just always gets me just pumped up and just in the mood for something that's so, laid back. Also, as a little tidbit, I'm not sure exactly where it came from. It was from some radio show. I don't know what it was, but somehow they got The Roots and Weird Al Yankovic in the same studio to cover this song. That's fucking cool. Moving right along to the next song, I'm gonna go with America by Simon and Garfunkel, which comes from the album Bookends, I think. And just a beautiful song. There's just probably been so much already said about this song. It's a pretty beloved 60s folk rock track. It's another song that, really sets a scene and, makes you picture these characters in your mind, and you know, one of those sort of metaphoric songs where it's like, yeah, they're just traveling on a bus, but like looking for America, trying to find the American dream. And all that aside, I get an itchy neck there, Fidget. All that aside, it just, I think this one line in particular always hits me, and I don't know why, but it's in the middle 8. The line, I said be careful, his bow tie is really a camera. I don't know why. I just love that line, and yeah, just always, that's usually when the goosebumps hit me. Okay, really shifting gears with this next one. And I could have gone with a handful of different songs from this artist, but I decided to go with Halloween by Dead Kennedys. Dead Kennedys were a huge revelation to me in high school. Really came at a time when I really wanted to get into punk and, you know, look past the Green Day and Blink-182 and whatever horse shit, like Fall Out Boy, whatever everyone else was listening to. It's like, let's dig back into decades before all these people took over the title of punk and see where it all came from. And it was a couple of songs in particular by them that each one was just like a new level of like, wow, that's really a new plateau of just subject matter about the songs, and just like, wow, it's such a, you know, there was Soup is Good Food was one that really kind of solidified my interest in the band, because it's just like, what a weird guitar chords and just this weird clashing of like punk energy with sort of like surf guitar riffs and stuff. Really interesting. I could have put California Uber Alice on this list. That one always riles me up. But I went with Halloween because particularly that first 30 seconds or so just get me pumped the fuck up. I mean, again, just very strange chords being used for a punk song, but just so much punch and energy on that whole album too. Plastic Surgery Disaster is my favorite Dead Kennedys album. Just so off the wall and creative and interesting and funny and exciting. Halloween, the subject matter is about, and you can play it all year round because it's not just about Halloween, but it's about how, you know, people dress up for Halloween. And basically the message of the song, if you want to give it a sugar-coated version, is just kind of like be yourself, because, you know, the narrator's sort of criticizing people who decide to come out of their shell one day out of the year and then pretty much just talk about how crazy and drunk they were that night on Halloween, but they decide to wear, you know, their conservative suit and go to work and be who society wants them to be every other day out of the year. Man, that guy's vibrato. Moving right along with a completely different vibe altogether is Daft Punk's One More Time. I specifically remember it coming on at my job recently and just saying to whoever was passing by at the moment, just saying like, man, whoever isn't into this song needs to die. I mean, seriously, how does this not at least get your foot tapping when that beat comes in? It's just a really creative way of, you know, taking vocal samples and, you know, really turning it into something else than what the singer originally recorded them to be, you know. It goes along very nicely with, there's a movie that Daft Punk came out, a whole narrative cartoon movie. I think it's called Interstellar Galaxy 5555, something like that. I haven't looked that up in a long time. But, I don't know, it's just a very simple dance song. There's not really much to go into. It's just a damn good time. Okay, so the next one I chose was a song by Joy Division called Transmission. And I'll just say up front that I really appreciate Joy Division. I don't know if I'm quite as rabid a fan as everyone else seems to be. You know, I don't have my Joy Division shirt. I don't own one. But like I said, I really appreciate them. Hugely influential, hugely important to music. really at the forefront of that whole kind of post-punk sound. And I love post-punk. It's very hard to describe what post-punk is, really, because it's one of those genres where there's sort of subgenres within the same genre and different characteristics within the same genre. But anyway, these guys really kind of set the template for what that sound would become. And my God, just in the last, I don't know, 10, 15, probably more years, there's just no way to chart how many bands really try to sound like Ian Curtis's vocals or try to get that groove. And anyway, the song is so simple, Transmission. It's just 2 guitar chords, just 2 bass notes, and yet there's just so much power and energy and passion just in those 2 bass notes. And it's just so signature, and you just know it as soon as you hear it. Even if someone were to pick up a bass guitar and just play those 2 notes, it's just like, oh, Joy Division, huh? I would also say, in particular, if you haven't heard that song, check out the live version from a TV appearance. I think it was their first TV appearance. I believe the show was called Something Else. But that live performance, man, that gets my blood flowing. And man, yeah. And just watching Ian Curtis doing this, all this stuff. My next one is Ghetto Boys with My Mind Is Playing Tricks on Me. I think this is kind of in the same camp as M. Ward, just because I like a song that can just tell a good story, you know? And this is another one that really, I mean, there's a video that goes along with it. It's one of those like classic old videos where they literally verbatim just show a scene of everything that's being said, which is cool. I kind of missed that a little bit. But all 3 of them, I think there's 3 of them, have separate verses talking about how there's some shadowy figure in the background that they can never seem to confront, but they keep haunting them all the time and cause them to go crazy in their real life. I'm sure you could kind of analyze what all that means, but that's for a separate video. I'm not gonna say, hey, like, what happened to hip-hop, man? I'm not one of those fucking douches that's like trapped in the nostalgia of when they got into hip-hop, and then everything else after that is just like, you're not the same, man, blah, 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 blah. You know, hip-hop today, it's all about the beats. I mean, you know, I think the beats are cool, but no one can write lyrics anymore. All this crap. Or like, oh, they just talk about bitches and hoes. That's not how it used to be. No, they never used to talk about bitches and hoes and doing fucking illegal shit and smoking weed. That was never in any old songs. No, of course not. Anyway, the beat is so good. It's just an infectious beat. For those who are curious, the beat is taken from an Isaac Hayes song, Hung Up on My Baby, which in itself is a fucking phenomenal track, which you should listen to. That came from a soundtrack of some album, so they sampled that song in this song. Great use of his sample too. It just really drives the song home, and even though it's 4 or 5 minute song, the beat just never gets old, and just kind of wish it could go on forever. I just also love the image of Ghetto Boys on Halloween robbing little kids for candy. My next choice, which is Suzanne Vega's song Tom's Diner. This was another artist I actually got to see live because she opened for Jethro Tull, and that was the infamous show back in 2001 where it fucking poured for the whole Jethro Tull performance. Very surreal at Jones Beach. Bless you. Very surreal at Jones Beach. It's coming down real hard, watching an entire performance. Tom's Diner, there's more than one version of this. There's the studio version that's acapella. You know, it's just 1.5 minutes long, just her singing and nothing else. There's this remix version by a group called DNA, not to be confused with the no wave group from the 80s, from the No New York compilation or whatever. And then there's there's another acapella version used in the music video for Tom's Diner, which is another version entirely as well. But I think the famous version is that sort of 4-minute remix version with the kind of like clunky dance beat and sort of like very choppy vocal sample of do 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 do. And if it were up to me, I think I would just prefer the completely a cappella version, and that's the one that really gives me the goosebumps. And yeah, it's another one of those songs where it's just kind of like a simple story, but it really paints a picture. Who is not completely immediately latching on to that vocal hook of do 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 do? So my next one is Boards of Canada with the track ROYGBV, which is an acronym that's used to, I guess, memorize the colors of the rainbow, which kind of strangely goes with that whole feeling that comes with listening to Boards of Canada, which most people describe as like feeling nostalgia for something, but you're not quite sure what you're feeling nostalgia for. And that's due to the fact that they're using just a lot of weird field recordings and samples of, you know, weather report and kids laughing and just weird old analog synths and stuff, and just very warm childhood sounding like sounds. I think, although, you know, they kind of have, they write or put out two types of songs really. There's kind of like, you know, the song will start with a nice little ambient piece, and then like that monster beat just drops and it just becomes hypnotizing. Or they have these like shorter vignette songs that are like a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes. This one's about 2.5 minutes, so it's actually somewhere in between those two. It's kind of like the perfect Boards of Canada song, though. It's just, it kind of really captures their sound very well. And we're at the last track here now, and it's another artist like Boards of Canada that comes from Warp Records, which is just one of the best goddamn record labels of all time, in my opinion. And that would be Aphex Twin with a track which is technically untitled, but it's been given the fan title of Rhubarb, which apparently coincides with, so it's on this album, Selected Ambient Works, Volume 2. And the reason it's given the name Rhubarb is sort of inside of the album. There's no track names, but there's a picture that represents each track, so that coinciding picture would be a picture of Rhubarb. I think this is probably one of his most well-known tracks, though, and it just sounds very different from most of his other stuff, him being Richard D. James. And, you know, most of his tracks, you know, it'll be extremely intricate EDM, or in this case they call it IDM, intelligent dance music, which is also pretentious, but it, you know, it's one of those titles that, like, while it's sort of, you know, it describes a sound. Like, even though it's kind of a jokey, half not serious title, it actually describes a sound. So this one, it's just so calming, very, very Brian Eno sort of sounding, very, very ambient. You know, there's no beat. It's just about 7.5 minutes of pure bliss. And I feel like I could show this track to literally anyone, any family member, any friend, any enemy, and I just feel like it's so hard to dislike and not just get so lost and engulfed in this track. What's more impressive is most of the tracks on Selected Ambient Works Volume 1 and 2 were composed when he was still a teenager, somewhere between the ages of 12 or 13 up until 20 or something like that. And man, especially that first volume is just extremely highly regarded and influential on electronic music, you know, up until today. I'm Brian Kish. Have a good day and stay sexy. Okay.